When the stars went silent, the morning sky looked normal until it didn't. Marcus Chen was halfway through his coffee, watching the sunrise paint the Seattle skyline in soft orange hues when the first ship appeared. Not gradually, not announced by any fanfare or warning broadcasts. It simply materialized above the Space Needle like a dark wound torn into the heavens. Within minutes, the single vessel became dozens, then hundreds. Massive, angular things that hurt to look at directly, as if their geometry offended human perception. They hung motionless in the atmosphere, casting shadows that seemed too deep, too cold for mere metal, and whatever alien materials composed their hulls. Marcus set down his coffee cup with trembling hands. The liquid had gone cold anyway. Across the street, his neighbor Sarah was standing in her doorway, still in her bathrobe, staring upward with the same expression of disbelief that Marcus felt carved into his own features. Then the first beam lanced down from the sky. The destruction wasn't random or chaotic. It was surgical, methodical, terrifyingly efficient. Power grids died first, plunging entire city blocks into darkness, even as the morning sun climbed higher. Communication towers crumpled like paper sculptures. Government buildings simply vanished, reduced to perfectly circular craters that steamed in the morning air. Marcus grabbed his emergency radio, the one he bought years ago during a preparedness kick that his friends had mocked. Static filled the airwaves, broken occasionally by fragments of panicked voices. Military bases under attack. Pentagon gone. Moscow dark. Beijing silent. The realization hit him like a physical blow. This wasn't happening just to Seattle. This was happening everywhere, all at once. By noon, the first landing pods began their descent. They fell like burning meteors, leaving trails of superheated air that made the sky shimmer. Each impact sent tremors through the ground that Marcus felt in his bones. He'd moved to his basement by then, along with Sarah and her 2 kids, plus old Mr. Petrov from next door. The basement felt like a tomb. Through the single window at ground level, Marcus watched the first aliens emerge from their pods. They moved wrong. That was his first thought. Not like anything that had evolved on any world he could imagine. Too fluid in some places, too rigid in others. Their armor seemed to breathe, and their weapons hummed with an energy that made his teeth ache. They weren't here to conquer in any traditional sense. They were here to harvest. The screaming started around sunset. Marcus and his small group of survivors stayed hidden for 3 days, sharing the meager supplies from Sarah's pantry and drinking water from the hot water heater. On the 4th day, the silence became unbearable. No sirens, no helicopters, no sounds of human resistance. Just the occasional alien patrol and the distant hum of their harvesting machines. It was Sarah who finally voiced what they were all thinking. Where is everyone else? Where's the cavalry? Marcus had been monitoring the radio constantly, cycling through every frequency he could find. There were still human voices out there, scattered and desperate, but they were all asking the same question. Where was the unified response? Where were the other nations, the backup plans, the secret weapons that every government surely had prepared for exactly this scenario? More importantly, where were the other aliens? The good ones. Marcus had grown up on science fiction, like most people his age. He knew the tropes, the patterns. When hostile aliens arrived, the peaceful ones weren't supposed to be far behind. Galactic federations, ancient guardians, benevolent watchers who'd been waiting for humanity to join the cosmic community. Someone should have come to help. Nobody came. On the 5th day, Marcus made his first kill. He hadn't meant to leave the basement. The plan was simple: wait for rescue, or at least wait for the situation to stabilize. But Mr. Petrov was diabetic, and they'd run out of his medication. The old man was fading fast, and Sarah's youngest, Emma, kept asking why Grandpa Petrov was sleeping so much. The pharmacy was only 6 blocks away. In the old world, it would have been a pleasant walk. Now, Marcus crawled through backyards and abandoned buildings, moving from shadow to shadow like a rat in the walls of a burning house. The pharmacy had been hit by something that left the front half of the building as a pile of melted concrete, but the back storage area was intact. Marcus filled his backpack with anything that looked medical, including a bottle of insulin that might keep Mr. Petrov alive a few more days. He was almost back to the basement when the harvester found him. It wasn't one of the warriors he'd seen patrolling. This thing was smaller, more insectoid, with multiple arms ending in various tools and sensors. It moved through the rubble with mechanical precision, scanning everything with beams of blue light that left afterimages in Marcus's vision. Marcus pressed himself against the wall of a collapsed house, hardly daring to breathe. The creature was 20 feet away, then 15, then 10. Its scanners swept back and forth like the eyes of a predatory bird. The beam passed over Marcus twice before it stopped. In that frozen moment, Marcus understood that his hiding was over. The thing had found him, was processing what he was, deciding what to do with him. He could see himself reflected in its compound eyes. A scared man in dirty clothes, clutching a backpack full of stolen medicine. The harvester raised one of its tool arms, and Marcus saw the business end begin to glow with the same blue light that had been destroying everything else. He didn't remember drawing the crowbar from his belt, didn't remember lunging forward or bringing the metal bar down on the creature's sensor cluster. He only remembered the satisfying crunch of breaking technology and the alien's shriek of surprise and pain. The thing thrashed, its remaining sensors spinning wildly as it tried to locate its attacker. Marcus hit it again and again, each blow accompanied by a sound like breaking glass and the smell of ozone. Black fluid that might have been blood spattered across the rubble. When it finally stopped moving, Marcus stood over it, breathing hard, the crowbar slick in his hands. He'd never killed anything larger than a spider before the invasion. Now he'd just beaten an alien harvester to death with a piece of construction equipment. It felt good. That realization should have scared him more than it did. The sound of approaching footsteps made him look up. 3 figures emerged from the ruins around him, moving with the practiced stealth of experienced soldiers. They wore mismatched gear, civilian clothes reinforced with pieces of alien armor, human weapons modified with salvaged technology, faces that had seen too much in too short a time. The leader was a woman, maybe 40, with graying hair and scars that looked fresh. She looked at Marcus, then at the dead harvester, then back at Marcus. "Not bad for a civilian," she said. Her voice carried an accent Marcus couldn't place. "You have a name." "Marcus. Marcus Chen. Elena Vasquez. Former Army Ranger, current pain in the ass to our new neighbors." She gestured to the 2 men with her. "This is Dr. Hayes, former battlefield medic. And Jackson, former convict, current explosives expert. We're what passes for organized resistance around here." Marcus hefted the crowbar, suddenly self-conscious. "I'm not a soldier. I just needed medicine for a friend." Elena smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. None of us were soldiers when this started. War has a way of making soldiers out of everyone who survives it long enough. She looked around at the devastation. "The question is, you want to keep hiding in whatever hole you crawled out of, or do you want to start hitting back?" Marcus thought about Mr. Petrov, dying slowly in a basement, about Sarah's kids who hadn't spoken in 2 days, about the silence from the sky, the absence of any help, any hope beyond what they could create themselves. "What did you have in mind?" Elena's smile turned predatory. "They're not invincible. That piece of junk you just killed, it was alone, unsupported. They're overconfident, spread thin. They think we're all hiding and crying, waiting for someone else to save us." She pulled out a tablet, its screen cracked but functional, showing a map of the city marked with red and green dots. "We've been watching their patterns, learning their routines. Tomorrow night, they're moving a processing unit through downtown. Lots of guards, heavy weapons, but there's a choke point at the 3rd Avenue Bridge. You want to ambush them." "I want to send a message," Elena corrected. "I want them to understand that Earth isn't going to roll over and die quietly. And I want everyone else hiding in basements and bunkers to see that these things can bleed. Marcus looked at his hands, still stained with alien fluid. 24 hours ago, he'd been a construction foreman worried about mortgage payments and project deadlines. Now he was being recruited for guerrilla warfare against an invasion force from another star. "What about the other aliens?" he asked. "The ones who are supposed to help. Surely someone out there is going to." "Nobody's coming," Elena said flatly. "We've been monitoring every frequency, every wavelength. The galaxy's gone silent. Either everyone else is dead, or they're too scared to get involved. Either way, we're on our own." Dr. Hayes, who'd been silent through the exchange, finally spoke up. "The wounded in our group are healing faster than they should, adapting to captured alien medical technology in ways that shouldn't be possible. There's something about humans, about Earth, that they didn't expect." Elena nodded. "We're not behaving like their other conquests. Most species apparently surrender after the demonstration phase, call for outside help, wait for rescue, then submit when none comes. We're still fighting. Because we're too stupid to know when we're beaten?" Marcus asked. "Because we're too stubborn to care," Elena replied. "The question is, are you stupid and stubborn enough to join us?" Marcus thought about the insulin in his backpack, about Mr. Petrov's gray face and Emma's silent tears. He thought about the empty sky and the alien's confident efficiency. Most of all, he thought about the sound the harvester had made when he killed it, and how right it had felt. "Yeah," he said, "I guess I am." Fire meets fire. The abandoned subway tunnels beneath downtown Seattle had become humanity's nervous system. Miles of passages that the aliens had dismissed as irrelevant now carried messages, supplies, and fighters through the heart of their occupied territory. Marcus had spent the last 2 weeks learning to navigate the darkness, following Elena and her team through a world that smelled of rust, mold, and the lingering ozone scent of alien technology. They weren't alone down here. Small groups of survivors had claimed different sections of the tunnel system, each with their own specialties and resources. There were the medical teams, led by Dr. Hayes, who'd figured out how to use alien healing gel to treat human injuries. The tech group, hackers and engineers who were slowly deciphering the invaders' computer systems. The scouts, former outdoorsmen, and urban explorers who mapped alien patrol routes and identified targets. And then there were the killers. Marcus had learned to recognize them by sight. They moved differently than the other survivors, with a fluid economy of motion that came from constant violence. Their eyes never stopped scanning for threats, and they carried their weapons like extensions of their own bodies. Elena was one of them, obviously. So was Jackson, despite his background. But there were others. A former police sniper named Torres, a gang member called Reaper who transitioned seamlessly from street warfare to alien hunting, a quiet woman named Kim who'd been a soccer mom until her family was harvested. They all had the same look in their eyes when they spoke about the aliens. Not fear, not even hatred exactly. It was something colder, more professional. They'd found their calling in the apocalypse. Marcus wasn't sure if he was becoming one of them or not. He'd participated in 3 raids since joining Elena's group, each one more audacious than the last. The processing unit ambush had been a success. They'd destroyed the convoy and captured enough alien technology to equip 2 more resistance cells. The sensor array strike had blinded the aliens in a 6-square-mile area of the city. The supply depot raid had netted them weapons, medical supplies, and most importantly, intelligence about the invaders' broader strategy. Each mission had required him to kill. Each time, it got a little easier. "You're adapting well," Elena said during one of their planning sessions. They were gathered around a table made from a sheet of metal balanced on concrete blocks, studying aerial photographs that Torres had taken with a modified drone. "Most people take months to develop proper tactical instincts. You've done it in weeks." Marcus looked at the photos, marking potential approach routes with a red pen. "Maybe I'm just highly motivated." "Maybe," Elena agreed. Or maybe humans adapt to warfare faster than other species. It's starting to look like we're not standard galactic citizens. That was the newest piece of intelligence they'd gathered. The aliens' computers, once partially decrypted, had revealed communications with their home system. Earth wasn't their first conquest, not by a long shot. They'd been doing this for centuries, maybe millennia. World after world, species after species, always following the same pattern. Overwhelming demonstration of force, followed by systematic harvesting of resources and population. The pattern always worked, until now. According to their records, Dr. Hayes had explained during the last briefing, most species surrender within hours of initial contact. They broadcast for help, wait for rescue, then negotiate terms when none arrives. The entire process usually takes less than a week. How long have we been fighting? Marcus had asked. 2 months, 3 days, and 16 hours, Jackson had replied without hesitation. The doctor nodded. Longer than any species in their database. And we're not just surviving, we're adapting. Learning to use their technology, developing new tactics, even starting to understand their biology. That last part was particularly interesting. Autopsies of dead aliens had revealed that they were heavily augmented beings, part biological and part machine. Their armor was actually a symbiotic organism that enhanced their natural abilities. Their weapons were biomechanical hybrids that responded to neural impulses. More importantly, they could be hacked. The next target is going to be different, Elena announced, spreading a new set of photographs across the table. We're not hitting a convoy or an outpost. We're going after one of their communication hubs. Marcus studied the images. The hub was a twisted spire of alien architecture that had grown out of what used to be the Columbia Center, the tallest building in Seattle. It pulsed with energy patterns visible even in daylight, and the air around it shimmered with electromagnetic distortions. That's a fortress, Torres observed. Multiple defensive layers, aerial patrols, probably booby-trapped to hell and back. Also heavily shielded, added Kim, who'd become their resident expert on alien technology. Any conventional approach is going to trigger their alarm systems before we get within half a mile. Elena smiled. Which is why we're not using a conventional approach. We're going to walk through the front door. The plan was insane, which probably meant it had a chance of working. Over the past month, Kim had been reverse engineering captured alien armor, learning how their identification systems worked. The aliens recognized each other through a combination of biological signatures and technological handshakes. If they could fake both, they might be able to infiltrate the communication hub during a shift change. The armor's the easy part, Kim explained during the technical briefing. I can modify captured suits to fit human physiology. The hard part is the biological component. Their IFF systems scan for specific genetic markers, hormone levels, neural patterns. So we can't fake it? Marcus asked. Not exactly fake it, Kim replied. But we might be able to confuse it long enough to get inside. I've been working on a compound that mimics their biochemistry, injected into the armor's life support system, and it should make the scanners think we're just really sick aliens. Really sick aliens who look human, Torres pointed out. The armor includes holographic projectors, Kim countered. Low resolution, but enough to create a basic disguise. At a distance, in dim light, we might pass for the real thing. Marcus felt a familiar tightness in his chest, the same sensation he'd experienced before every raid. Fear mixed with anticipation, terror balanced by a growing hunger for action. The scared construction worker was still in there somewhere, but he was being overwhelmed by something harder, more focused. What's the real objective here? He asked. What are we actually trying to accomplish? Elena's expression grew serious. Intelligence. Specifically, we want to know why no one else in the galaxy has tried to help us. The communication hub should have records of their diplomatic contacts, trade negotiations, maybe even military alliances. You think they're actively preventing other species from interfering. I think there's something about this invasion that doesn't match their standard pattern, Elena replied. Something that explains why Earth is still fighting when every other world fell quickly. Jackson leaned forward. Maybe we're just tougher than average. Maybe, Elena agreed. Or maybe we're being tested. The infiltration began at dawn, during the shift change that they'd observed for 3 weeks. Marcus wore modified alien armor that felt like being wrapped in something alive and hostile. The biomimetic compound Kim had developed made his skin itch and his vision blur slightly, but the armor's sensors registered him as a low-level alien soldier reporting for duty. Elena and Jackson flanked him, their own disguises just as convincing. They moved through the ruined streets with the measured pace of alien patrols, their weapons held in the proper position, their body language matching what they'd observed from countless hours of surveillance. The hardest part was walking past human bodies without stopping. The aliens had left them where they'd fallen, either as intimidation or simple indifference. Marcus forced himself to look straight ahead, to maintain the inhuman posture that the armor demanded, even as he stepped over the remains of people who might have been his neighbors. The communication hub's entry checkpoint was exactly where their intelligence had indicated. 2 guards in heavy armor, scanning each arrival with handheld devices that hummed with alien energy. The first guard waved them through without even looking up. The second one paused, scanner lingering on Elena's disguised form for a moment longer than expected, but ultimately gestured them toward the main entrance. Inside, the hub was a nightmare of organic architecture and technological complexity. Walls that breathed, floors that pulsed with bioluminescent veins, ceilings covered in neural networks that sparked with information flowing at incomprehensible speeds. The air itself felt thick with data, as if the building's purpose was so intense that it had become a physical presence. They found the main data core 3 levels up, past security checkpoints that their stolen credentials bypassed, and through corridors filled with aliens who paid them no attention. The core itself was beautiful in an horrific way, a crystalline structure the size of a small building, floating in a sphere of liquid that might have been water or might have been something else entirely. "How long do you need?" Elena whispered through their communication system. Kim's voice came back tense with concentration. "The interface is more complex than anything we've seen before. Give me 10 minutes." They didn't have 10 minutes. Marcus had been counting the patterns, timing the patrol schedules, and their window was closing fast. Any moment now, the real guards would return from whatever duty cycle had created the opening for their infiltration. "Company," Jackson muttered. Through the transparent walls of the data chamber, Marcus could see alien soldiers approaching. Not the standard patrol they'd expected, but a full squad in combat gear, moving with the urgency of troops responding to an alert. "We're blown," Elena said calmly. "Kim, whatever you can get in the next 30 seconds. "I'm in," Kim replied, her fingers flying over alien controls that shouldn't have responded to human touch. "Downloading now." "This is... oh God. What is it?" "They're not the invaders," Kim said, her voice tight with shock. "They're refugees." The door exploded inward, and the first alien through was carrying a weapon that could have cut a building in half. Marcus didn't think, just reacted, the weeks of training and combat experience taking over. His stolen weapon came up, energy discharge tearing through alien armor. And suddenly, the chamber was full of violence and screaming and the smell of burning technology. But Kim's words echoed in his mind even as he fought for his life. "They're refugees." The battle lasted maybe 90 seconds. When it was over, Marcus found himself standing over 3 dead aliens, his weapon's power cell drained. Kim's download device clutched in Elena's bloodied hand. "We need to move," Elena said. "Now." They'd fought their way out of the building, their disguises abandoned, moving through corridors that suddenly seemed to pulse with alarm signals. More guards appeared, but they were ready now, working together with the fluid coordination that only came from shared combat experience. By the time they reached the street level, the entire hub was in chaos. Alarms shrieked, security forces mobilized, aerial patrols converged on their position. But the subway entrance was only 2 blocks away, and they'd mapped 17 different escape routes. They made it to the tunnels with enemy fire scorching the air around them, diving into the darkness just as the street above erupted in searchlights and the roar of alien aircraft. In the safety of the underground, Elena activated Kim's download device and began reviewing the stolen data. What she found there would change everything they thought they knew about the invasion, about Earth's place in the galaxy, and about why no help had come when humanity screamed into the void. The truth was worse than abandonment. The truth was that they were completely, utterly alone in ways they'd never imagined. But they were still fighting, and that, according to the stolen files, was something that had never happened before in the entire recorded history of the galaxy. The war was about to change, and for the first time since the ships had appeared in Earth's sky, the aliens were the ones who should be afraid.